Well, last week when Vajraprana was reading, I was just doing a quick rerun on some of it, and I loved where Swamiji said, Sharat's is the blood of a fish, it will never warm up. When he was absolutely implacable in the carriage that was rapidly approaching a tree.
That's right.
Yep. So I thought, I remember that story, but I didn't realize it came so early in this book. So this evening we're on the next page, which starts out, Swamiji died on the 4th of July, 1902. Page 34, the very top of the page. Swamiji died on the 4th of July, 1902. That's why we have our big celebration in Trabuco every year on the 4th. Swami Vivekananda planted the ideal of worshiping God through service to mankind in Swami Saradananda's heart. After Swamiji's Mahasamadhi, Swami Saradananda practiced that ideal in such large-scale projects as flood and famine relief, the mission's educational programs, and protecting the monks who had given up their revolutionary politics from the government. Now, at that time in India, Subhash Ghosh was leading a India freedom movement, and many of the young Bengalis were very, very involved in it, including Swami Prabhavananda used to say, and I kept a gun under my bed for someone. He was like 12 or 13, but he was hiding them. But many of the young monks had gotten involved with Subhash Ghosh and gave it up immediately when they went into the monastery. So that's why he was protecting the monks from the government. And still, he never stopped caring for individuals and watching over those around him, supervising the upbringing of Yoganma's 3 orphan grandchildren was one of his last domestic concerns. Swami Brahmananda became head of the Matan mission. A senior Swami said of him, Sri Ramakrishna has brought Swami Vivekananda for the whole world and Swami Brahmananda for himself. But we younger monks felt that Maharaj, as he was known in the order, had been brought for us too. It was he who first inspired me to live a life of renunciation for the realization of God and to serve humanity. And it was Maharaj who gave me, as he gave so many others, my vows of brahmacharya. Swami Saradananda delivered a series of lectures on the Bhagavad Gita at Albert Hall in Calcutta in 1906. The lectures were later published under the title The Essence of the Bhagavad Gita. He was an effective speaker in Bengali, English, and Hindustani, which he used in his tours of northwestern India. Sometimes he wrote down his speeches, but often he spoke extemporaneously. He drafted the 2 speeches he gave for the Ramakrishna Mission Convention of 1926 and asked for my opinion of them. I told him I thought they were very good. You may say so, but will the public endorse your opinion? He replied. They did. His audiences at Bellarmont remained spellbound in introspective silence for several minutes after he had finished. During a lecture of a series on Vedanta philosophy in East Bengal, Swami Saradananda also was asked to speak about Sri Ramakrishna. He replied with a smile, as long as there is the slightest trace of egotism, it is futile to try to understand Ramakrishna. We were fortunate to sit at the feet of such a man in whom there was no body consciousness, not the slightest touch of lust and desire. He looked upon all women as the manifested symbol of the Divine Mother. His senses were so pure and so well tuned that even the least thought wave emanating from the Divine Mother was recorded and would move him automatically like a machine. Every pulsation of thought, every rhythm of his activity was at the bidding of the Supreme Mother. The command of the Mother he felt, not merely in meditation, but heard constantly as a human voice. That voice, incarnated in sound, entered into his ears so that he acted accordingly to teach mankind. Meditate on Sri Ramakrishna. Dwell on his qualities. Then he will reveal himself to you and make you understand everything. There's not the slightest doubt about it. Have faith. How much have we understood of Ramakrishna, of his infinite moods, of his infinite expressions? To tell the truth, very little. After saying these words, his voice failed and he became motionless like a statue. He stayed in this exalted mood without uttering a single word for some time. The audience was struck with wonder and pondered how great Ramakrishna must be when the thought of him would throw his disciple into samadhi. An ideal monk must be courageous. He must hold fast to justice and truth in his inner and outer lives. Swami Saradananda demonstrated these qualities in his dealings with the British Colonial Office. In 1909, the Swami accepted into the Ramakrishna order 2 men who were former revolutionaries. Later, a few other revolutionaries would follow. By doing so, he invited retaliation from the British and the local police. The 2 former revolutionaries received spiritual initiation from Holy Mother, and they later became Swamis Pragyananda and Chinmoyananda. They never betrayed the trust of that Swami Saradananda placed in them, and were valued workers for the Mat as long as they lived. Another former revolutionary, Swami Prakashananda, wrote in his reminiscences, "But for Swami Saradananda, I would have no place in this order, and the service that I have rendered to the suffering people through the years during flood, famine, epidemics, and earthquakes would not have been possible without his compassionate help. I don't know how to repay my debt of gratitude to the Swami, who has been a strong support to me in my difficult days, and a worthy benefactor to my soul in my spiritual life." The presence of the former revolutionaries did bring police surveillance down on the order. Swami Prakashananda, who had joined in 1912, recalled that when the police learned that he was at the Udbodhan, they summoned Swami Saradananda for questioning. The police official did not offer the Swami a chair, nor speak courteously to him. Standing, Swami Saradananda gently assured the police official that the young men who joined the Ramakrishna order give up all political activities. When they were returning to Bellarmont, one of the former revolutionaries who had accompanied the Swami to the police department said in an aggravated tone, "Swami, I'm extremely sorry. It is for my sake that you have had to put up with an insult unworthy of your position." "Who can insult me?" Swami Saradananda replied. "If my mind does not accept the rudeness, how can I be insulted? Have I kept anything from myself? I have already offered body, mind, and soul to the blessed feet of our Lord, where there cannot be any room for good and bad, honor and dishonor. Be at ease. You need not worry on my behalf." Later, police officials visited Bellarmont. The Swami received them cordially and talked to them about the ideals of the Ramakrishna mission. They were impressed by his genial temperament and candid behavior. Gradually, the cloud of suspicion was lifted from their minds. But the problem did not end there. A few years later, some government sedition committee's investigators who had not met with authorities at Bellarmine filed a report insinuating that the writings of Swami Vivekananda inspired young revolutionaries. The report was followed in 1916 by a speech by Lord Ronaldshay, the governor of Bengal, charging that the Ramakrishna mission gave shelter to revolutionaries. One part of the speech stated that revolutionaries often seize the opportunity which membership in a charitable society like the Ramakrishna mission or participation in the relief of distress gives them to meet and influence boys who have noble ideals, but who have not enough experience to judge where a particular course might lead. Mean and cruel men do join these societies in order to corrupt the minds of young men who would, if only they were not interfered with, be benefactors to their fellow countrymen. Okay. The governor's statement could have been disastrous. It could have easily provoked the Executive Council of the Viceroy of India to ban the Ramakrishna order for harboring cruel and mean men with revolutionary tendencies to overthrow the British government. They had done this to the Anushilan Samiti, a revolutionary movement of Dhaka, a few years before, effectively wiping out the movement. At the least, our foreign activities would have been stifled by the withholding of passports to Swamis. The centers in America, England, and Europe would have suffered a terrible setback. In India, our philanthropic activities would have been hurt. Although the government never gave us substantial money, they did help us in many ways to initiate, expand, consolidate, and execute our relief projects. Employees of the government could not have openly sympathized with our humanitarian activities for fear of prosecution or of losing their jobs. The British government had the full power to curb our mission work. They could have put an end to our flood and famine relief projects. In the hope of mitigating the damage, Swami Saradananda wrote to the governor, giving him the true story of what had happened. After some time, the Swami received a letter asking him to come to the governor's residence to answer questions. When Swami Saradananda arrived, he was received by the governor's secretary, Mr. Gorley. The Swami told Gorley that the mission had not deviated from its high spiritual principles and did not engage in political activities, emphasizing the order's right to accept novices according to its own discretion. As a result of this interview, Lord Ronaldshay did change his official position, a unique reversal in the history of the British government during its regime in India. The governor wrote the Swami, "My object was not to condemn the Ramakrishna mission and its members. I know the character of the mission work is entirely non-political, and I have heard nothing but good of its work of social science for the people. I have full sympathy with the real aims of the Ramakrishna mission, and it was this abuse of the name of the mission that I wished to prevent. I hope the words I used will help the mission to guard against the illegitimate use of its name by unscrupulous people." Indeed, Swami Saradananda had taken great pains to see that the order did not become entangled with politics. He knew from studying history that religious movements often lost their power to do good by entering the political arena. Jesus told his disciples, "Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's." and "My kingdom is not of this world." In 1921, Mahatma Gandhi started his non-cooperation movement as part of the campaign to free India from British rule. Gandhi's followers wanted the Ramakrishna mission to boycott British goods, British courts, everything British. Swami Saradananda admired Gandhi for his sincerity, unselfishness, and service to India. But he knew Gandhi's sphere of action was very different from his own. The Swami knew the mission's message must be universal. It must be delivered for the good of all, not just for the good of the Hindus in India. It must be a spiritual, not a political message. Thus, despite criticism from some of Gandhi's followers, he kept the mission free of the non-cooperation movement. Because Swami Saradananda was able to remain unperturbed during crises, he was able to penetrate to the heart of matters and make quick, constructive decisions. He was the embodiment of the Bhagavad Gita's definition of a seer. Not shaken by adversity, not hankering after happiness, free from fear, free from anger, free from the things of desire, I call him a seer and illumined. The bonds of his flesh are broken. He is lucky and does not rejoice. He is unlucky and does not weep. I call him illumined. I call him illumined. The Swami's physical courage was an easy match for his moral courage. Once, a sudden storm struck a country boat that was taking Swami Saradananda and Dr. Kanjilal up the Ganga to Bellarmine, so that the doctor, a devotee, could perform some minor surgery on Swami Brahmananda. Swami Saradananda sat at his ease smoking a pipe. Halfway across the river, the boat was in danger of swamping. Dr. Kanjilal became panicky, but the Swami continued sitting imperturbably smoking his pipe. Dr. Kanjilal's nerves and the storm worsened. Finally, the doctor flew into a rage at the Swami's composure in the face of death and threw the Swami's tobacco container into the river. Swami Saradananda kept on smoking. "Sir," the doctor shouted at him, "don't you know enough to be afraid? Death is knocking at our door, and you sit smoking." "What next?" the Swami replied with a twinkle. "Are you going to throw away my pipe too?" Nothing that ordinary men fear seemed to bother him. Swami Turiyananda used to tell the story of the time when he and Vaikuntha Nath Sanyal, a lay disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, and Swami Saradananda, pilgrimaging to the shrines of the Himalayas, took longer worshipping Shiva at the famous Virupaksha temple than they had planned. Darkness fell as they made their way down a mountain path toward the rest home for pilgrimage. Suddenly, a tiger roared. After a short conference, they decided to split up so that at worst, only one of them would be killed by the tiger. With the tiger roaring close at hand, Swami Saradananda went on his way. Finally, after traveling some distance, he climbed a rock and decided to stay there for the night. He repeated the name of Sri Ramakrishna and went into deep meditation. In the morning, Swami Turiyananda and Vaikuntha Nath Sanyal, who had both spent the night in safer places, found their friend seated on the rock, still totally unconscious of the outer world. Any questions about his absolute faith in God and courage? Because we'll start on chapter 5 if there are no questions or comments. Okay, chapter 5, Holy Mother and the Udbodhan. In 1902, when Swami Trigunatitananda, the chief editor of the Udbodhan, left for America, Swami Saradananda took over the responsibility for publishing the Bengali magazine that was one of the chief voices of the Ramakrishna movement. At that time, the magazine was printed by Girindra Vasak from his own home on Maitre Lane, where he had a small press called Sarda Press. In November 1906, Girindra passed away, and the Udbodhan was moved to a rented house in Bospara Lane, Bagh Bazaar, Calcutta. The owner saw what he thought was a golden opportunity and increased the rent enormously. Does this sound familiar? The same things happen today. Contrary to his expectations, his move prompted Swami Saradananda to think of building a home for the magazine and consolidating its management with the editorial work on the books published by the Ramakrishna Mission. There was an even more important reason to build in Calcutta. Holy Mother badly needed a place to stay during the period she set aside to give her blessings to the increasing number of devotees who were seeking her out. Going against opposition from some quarters, the Swami borrowed money on his own initiative to finance the construction of a building that would house the publishing house downstairs and Holy Mother upstairs. Towards the end of 1908, the work was finished, and the publishing enterprise was installed in its new building at Mukherjee Lane, which has since been changed to Udbodhan Lane. Depending on whether the speaker was thinking of the downstairs offices or the upstairs residence, the building was variously referred to as the Udbodhan office, the Udbodhan house, or even Holy Mother's house. Holy Mother first came there on 23 May 1909. From the house, she could easily walk to the Ganga for her daily bath, and she could see the towers of the temple at Dakshineshwar, where Sri Ramakrishna had completed his spiritual explorations and where he had taught and shared his experiences with her and his devotees. Her arrival gave Swami Saradananda great joy. Since the death of Swami Yogananda and the departure of Swami Trigunatitananda to the west, Swami Saradananda had taken up Holy Mother's comfort as his most important work. She was more than the wife of his guru. She was Sri Ramakrishna's first and foremost disciple, who applied his teachings to her day-to-day life despite all obstacles and discomforts. Now that Sri Ramakrishna was dead, she took up his role as guru, spiritual teacher and guide, uplifting the lives of those who came in contact with her in ways and to an extent that surprised the persons themselves and all who knew them. To Swami Saradananda, Sri Sarada Devi was the Divine Mother in human form. Swami Saradananda's devotion to Holy Mother is a legend to the monks of the Ramakrishna order. His devotion inspired their understanding of her and deepened their trust in her. Swamiji, writing from America to a brother monk, spoke for both of them when he said, "None of you have understood Mother. Her grace upon me is 100,000 times more great than that of my masters. About Mother, I am a little fanatic. I can do anything if she gives me the order. I shall give a sigh of relief when you purchase a piece of land and install the living Durga there." The necessity of a guru was an awakener of the soul, as an awakener of the soul and a dispeller of the darkness, has been recognized from the early Vedic days down to our modern times. Holy Mother's special quality was that she could not refuse anyone who came to her door for help. Swami Premananda, a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, once said in astonishment, "What a power Holy Mother is! The poison we cannot digest, we send to Holy Mother. But how wonderful it is, the very person whom all gave up as hopeless, turned over a new leaf and became a regenerated soul by the magic of her words and the power of her touch. The words of Holy Mother have an irresistible force because they came from her own experiences. The gift of highest realization, which arose from inner purity and divine contemplation, made her competent to solve the most intricate problems of spiritual life in an infallible manner. When asked how one could lead a spiritual life while performing humdrum duties, she replied, "You must do your normal work. Many are known to do great works under the stress of some strong emotion. But a man's true character is revealed from the manner in which he does his insignificant daily duties. But prayer and meditation are also necessary. You must meditate twice a day despite your heavy activities. That will be like a helm to a boat. It is idle to expect that dangers and difficulties will not come. But for a man of prayer, they will pass away under the feet like water. One who makes a habit of prayer will easily overcome all difficulties and remain calm and unruffled in the midst of the trials of life." The art of living lies in one word: simplicity. But we associate greatness with grandeur. To us, a great person should have a halo and be able to perform miracles. That is not true, for all the great things of life are very simple. Great literature is simple. When ornate style comes, literature fails to achieve its noble purpose of creativity. It becomes stagnant like a river that has ceased to flow. Similarly, good music is also simple. The Fifth Symphony of Beethoven is simple. Its music came spontaneously from the innermost depths of his soul, and he gave expression to its flow freely, without hindrance by the manipulation of restless thought. Only geniuses can create good literature and first-class music, for they have struggled hard, scorning delight and living laborious days to develop their talent, while preserving the freshness and simplicity of inspiration. And we'll read this one letter from Sister Nivedita. Sister Nivedita found this quality in Holy Mother. While she was in Boston taking care of Sarah Bull, Mrs. Oli Bull, who had fallen ill, Sister Nivedita took the time to write to Holy Mother. And here's the letter. On December 11th, 1910. Dearest Mother, I wish we could send you a wonderful hymn or a prayer, but somehow even that would seem too loud, too full of noise. Surely you are the most wonderful thing of God, Sri Ramakrishna's own chalice of his love for the world, a token left for his children in these lonely days, and we should be very still and quiet before you, except indeed for a little fun. Surely the wonderful things of God are all quiet, stealing unnoticed into our lives. The air and the sunlight and the sweetness of gardens and of the Ganga. These are the silent things that are like you. Isn't your thought now and then of the high calm that neither loves nor hates? Isn't that a sweet benediction that trembles in God, like the dewdrop on the lotus leaf, and touches not the world? Swami Saradananda translated this letter into Bengali and read it to Holy Mother. While listening to the words of Nivedita, she entered into a high introspective mood and blessed both Nivedita and Sarah Bull from the depth of her heart. Swami Saradananda bowed down and touched the feet of the mother and went downstairs to return to work. Perhaps he pondered over the words, "The wonderful things of God are all quiet, stealing unnoticed into our lives, and prayed silently that God make us simple and truly beautiful. And we'll stop there this afternoon. Any questions or comments on what we're reading?
That's a very, very beautiful line.
Isn't that
about-
beautiful? Yeah. These, what always touches me is how these people, when you say they knew they lived with Ramakrishna, and they lived with Holy Mother, and yet they still say the depth is so beyond our feeble minds. We have to reach that with the love in our hearts. Okay. Saturday, we will have our Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna reading at 5 o'clock. And Sunday, the 17th, Swami Vedarupananda will give a talk on the voice of freedom. So, in the weekend of the 24th is Swami Saradananda's weekend, so you be expecting Gita class and everything on Saturday and Sunday lecture, The Power of Desireless Action. Okay? No questions? No, I agree with you. Sunanda is a beautiful, beautiful passage, and Swami Aseshananda wrote it down so easily available to us to understand. Yeah. Okay. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you. So we shall see you when we see you. Okay.
Thank you.
How's everything going, Leanne?
It's fine.
Good. Okay. Gunga, everything well with you? Lito
Yep,
and
my ankle's all better.
good. Lito and Dottie, I see a big heart, so I'm assuming things are going well with you. Okay. Have a wonderful week this next week. And we'll talk to you later.